Hey, I've got a cold open apology this time. I had some technical difficulties during this recording, so I didn't notice when a little bit of electrical noise started creeping in partway through. Now, it's not that distracting, but I believe that you, the listener, deserve the best listening experience that a free podcast can buy, so I wanted to give you a formal apology. And now that that's done, let's start the show! Hello! 欢迎来到 Mandarin Slang Guide, MSG, the Chinese learning podcast that tastes great and probably isn't all that bad for you. I'm Josh Ogden Davis, bringing you some words and perspectives that aren't in your textbook. And today I'm here with a very special guest, Johnny. Hi, Johnny.
Hey, how's it going?
It's going pretty well. How about you?
Not bad, not bad.
Excellent. That's well above average for this year that we're living in.
Mm-hmm.
So I first met Johnny on Twitter, and what really attracted me to his account was that he was tweeting about teaching Mandarin through video games.
Mm-hmm.
And I, just a couple weeks ago, finally had time to look at some of your streams. Very choice. Love them a lot. But I'm very curious. What do you do?
I'm actually a game developer. I am a product manager for a video game company, Standing Stone Games. We make Lord of the Rings Online and Dungeons and Dragons Online.
Whoa, that's you?
Yeah.
I've played your games before. I didn't know.
Those are the two products I'm currently on. So playing games has just always been a part of what I've been doing for like the last nearly a decade, I guess.
What led you to want to play Chinese video games for a non-Chinese speaking audience?
I guess part of it was I was talking to a lot of people about how video game industry, we don't really have a lot of representative games. A lot of the stories are, for lack of a better term, like Eurocentric. They're always like, cis white dudes who are like the hero who are always telling things from like the story of like a European point of view. But like the thing is, there's a lot of other games that are being made like in other countries that for budget reasons, it's really hard to localize a game, especially when there's a lot of story behind it, and then like bring it over and then market it and to get traction and make it a profitable venture. So I was like, you know what? I'm just going to show you guys that, yeah, we've had like franchises that are just as long running as like Final Fantasy, and we make a lot of really cool games. And I just felt like I'm just going to start playing them. And if people want to learn some Chinese along the way, then that's cool too.
That's fantastic. And by the way, I do want to learn some Chinese along the way. You mentioned that a lot of the games are highly Eurocentric, and you're working on Lord of the Rings and Dungeons and Dragons, two famously Eurocentric titles. Are there some big differences between Eurocentric games and possibly a Chinese-developed game? Like, is there anything that would jump out and surprise me as someone who's used to Eurocentric games?
I guess a lot of it would just be general genre style stuff, right? Like the two games that I've really played a lot when I was growing up was shén. That was one of the ones that was on my Twitch for a while. And that's like a very like xianxia genre, and that popularized that genre. So when you have people who talk about like The Untamed on Netflix, like that's in the same vein of like high fantasy, like magic style stuff. And then you have the wuxia genre, which is from like Louis Cha and all of his works, and there's like Gulong and a whole bunch of other people. He actually had some games that were like an isekai game where the main character is teleported to his world and you are given very few clues except that your goal is to find like the 14 works that he has and then like find a way home. But the problem with that game is unless you've read his books, you really don't know like the inter-character relationships between the people and how to recruit them and like who's good and who's evil. And it's a giant mess that was not easily marketed to not fans of Louis Cha's works. And there's a lot of explanation like to understand how the game systems work, as like you have to understand like the cultural nuances and like basically the whole like background of like wuxia and like xianxia and how like God forbid me say, but it's like how qi works, because I'm speaking of it's just like, oh my God, I'm just like
Qi, the unexpected hot word for 2020.
Like I didn't even watch the Mulan movie, and then like when I saw like some people tweet about it, I was like all right, we're just going to take this. I'm just going to shove it somewhere in the corner.
Yeah.
Like, that's a whole nother subject of like wuxia and like the fantasy and how like, I guess the concept of it works. It's very different than magic, but people make it like that.
Yeah. Two words that you've mentioned a lot is wuxia and xianxia. And these are two, you could say that in a way, these are like two different kinds of Chinese fantasy, whereas like wuxia is what we might think of as like a sort of a kung fu movie, but also has some supernatural elements to it. And xianxia is more of like a magical demons and wizards and whatever have you sort of thing. But in English, we just have this word fantasy. But even though that's such a general word, we have such a specific take on it. Like a wizard is a specific thing, and a dragon is a specific thing that doesn't exist in other cultures' conceptions of these sorts of fictions. And I do want to do a whole episode on wuxia and xianxia at some point. But today is not that day, my friend. You mentioned at the beginning one of the games that you played when you were a kid. What was that game?
仙剑奇侠传.
仙剑奇侠传. Like fairy sword.
Right? It's hard to translate, isn't it?
It sort of is, yes.
It sounds really cool in Chinese, though.
Yeah, what would it walk me through that, and what would that be in English?
So 仙剑 is like, shén is like fairy or like some sort of like immortal. So the 8 immortals, like the ba xian, right? That's like the 8 immortals, like that's the same character. And jian is sword, so it's like fairy sword, like immortal sword or something. And qi is like, I guess would be like 奇怪, but it's more like something unimaginable. Like, it's like something that's like, it's hard to describe. And then xia is like, well, let's just, xia is like a whole nother like concept that is just like, well, it's like an honorable person, but not really. It's like, and it's a story. So in English, the rough translations they've given it are either The Legend of Sword and Fairy.
Not bad, but that sounds very Western fantasy to me. Like I can imagine, I'm seeing Link in a forest pulling the Master Sword, and there's a little fairy buzzing around his head. Like that's the image it conjures for me.
Here's the other one they gave it, was Chinese Paladin, and I'm just like, oh, yeah. So when I'm streaming, I just call it The Legend of Sword and Fairy, and just be like, we're just gonna call it this and live with it because I don't have a better translation for it.
Speaking of which, before we get into this, if people want to find you online and watch your streams, how can they find you?
I tweet a lot about game stuff on my Twitter at OrangePeelPanda. And on Saturdays at some point in time, I like to stream for like about an hour of these games. I was doing Shenzhen, but it was kind of, this will be like 4th playthrough of it. And then Genshin Impact happened. So, and it's a Chinese game. And it has a lot of good Chinese writing. I just tweeted about it earlier that they're literally using like 成语.
Nice.
Which is something that Chinese learners know that if you want to impress someone, you got to drop these things, man. Like when you drop these things, people are like, oh, you know your stuff, right?
Yeah.
So they started doing that stuff. And I was doing a quest where it's like a freaking puzzle. And they even like use like classical Chinese style stuff for this puzzle. I'm like, dude, my brain is not in the mood to try to do this right now.
So where do you stream?
On Twitch. Also at Orange Peel Panda.
All right. So on Twitter or on Twitch, Orange Peel Panda, all one word, right?
Yep, all one word.
Awesome. All right. Now, I feel a little bit like we did a bait and switch because we spent the whole intro talking about fantasy or xianxia or wuxia. But the genre that I think we're going to spend most of our time talking about today is a different genre altogether. We're going to be talking about Mobas or multiplayer online battle arenas, not because they're cooler or better than other games, but because, in my personal experience anyway, those are so popular, at least in China, that a lot of these words and phrases that players of MOBAs use bleed into real life.
Yeah.
So the big MOBA in China is 王者荣耀.
Yep, 王者荣耀. Yep.
Commonly translated as Glory of Kings. But like a MOBA that might be more familiar to people from the West would be like League of Legends or Dota.
Yep.
So we're going to break this up into 3 different sets of words. First, we have some words that people might use in the chat as players are talking to each other.
Mm-hmm.
Then we're going to talk about some of the roles that you have. Because if you haven't played a MOBA before, it's a team game, and everyone in the team has a specific role they're supposed to fill. And these roles sort of seem to crop up in conversation from time to time. And at the end, this is something you brought up that I never even thought about. Some of the characters from League of Legends, distinctly non-Chinese game, have been given Chinese nicknames that are interesting or fascinating for various reasons. So we'll go through some of those.
Yeah, those are really fun.
When you sent me a list of them, I looked at that list. I was just laughing for a while because it's, I don't even know how to describe it. It's like I'm taking a peek into a nerd culture that I never knew existed.
Yep.
All right, so let's start with some of the slang that players might use with each other.
Yeah.
So this is one that we may even have talked about on the podcast before, but it's really heavily tied to gaming, and it's the character kēng. How would you describe what kēng means?
It just means hole. Like, it just means hole. But I actually haven't seen this used in a MOBA, but I don't really play with other Chinese players when I play MOBAs. In colloquial speak, though, if someone says 你被坑了, means someone took advantage of you, right? 被人家坑了.
Yeah, it's like someone shoved you in a hole. Someone trapped you.
Yeah, or like dug a hole out of you. I don't know.
Oh, really? Dug a hole out of you? I never thought about it that way.
Like 做这个很坑, it's like a lot of work and exhausting, right? 这很坑, it's like it costs a lot.
这很坑. This very 坑. This is very hole.
Yep.
This is very pit. It just means like this is going to really suck. And you can also say like a person, 他很坑.
Huh.
You never heard that before?
No. See, I'm learning something too.
Now, here's the thing. I learned my Mandarin in China. And you are Taiwanese, correct?
Yeah.
So we have maybe a little bit of a dialect difference, which is a weird thing for me to say since I'm not a native speaker.
No, there's slang differences for sure, yeah.
And when I used to play 王者荣耀 a lot because I'm a cool guy who has a great social life. And players would call other players 坑. Oh, 你好坑欸. Yeah, like if one player on the team is really bad and like they're pulling the team back.
Yep. It means you're costing me too much. Me and Kung is like, you're costing me everything. You're costing me my win. You're costing me my gold.
Yeah.
That's hilarious. Okay. All right.
Yeah, and also when I was doing marketing work, sometimes we would say that, 哦，这个项目好坑欸. This project, it's a lot of work. It's really tiring. There's no benefit. We just hate this. It's so 坑.
Yep.
All right. And along those lines, there's another one, which I find particularly colorful. 猪一样的队友. Have you heard this before? You're laughing, so I assume you have.
Yep.
Can you break that down for me? 猪一样的队友.
So 猪 is just pig.
Yeah.
猪一样 is like just like a pig. So you can actually take this apart and be like, 跟猪一样,跟狗一样, like you're a dog, right? Or like, 跟猫一样. Like you can replace, like, the sentence structure here is 跟 and then like X and then 一样. It means like just like, right? And it doesn't always have to be an animal. You can just be like, 跟爸爸一样 is like just like your dad.
Yeah.
You can say that, but like 猪一样的队友 is like, dude, this teammate is just like a pig. So you're just like someone who's just like a pig and just like eating up everything.
Yeah. So 队友 at the end, 队 is from 团队, so it means team.
Team, yep.
And 友 is like 朋友, friend.
Yep.
So 队友 is literally team friend, but it's teammate. So 猪一样的队友 is teammates that are like pigs.
Yep.
Pigs are funny because in English, I don't think there's any positive connotation to a pig at all. But in Chinese, it's very two-sided. Like, pigs can often be seen as cute, so it can represent very cute or innocent. But in this context, it means completely worthless. Just like, you have this team of 5, and 4 of them are just, covered in armor, big swords, and there's just a pig right there who can't do anything. That's a 猪一样的队友.
Yep. It's like you're just not doing anything. You just might as well not have you.
Yeah.
That's basically what it is. So when someone says 你是猪一样的队友, it means you're not carrying your own weight.
Has anyone ever called you a 猪一样的队友? Because they've called me that before.
Oh yeah. Dude, I'm like so bad at Mobas sometimes. It's just like, well, I know I'm doing bad. Sorry, guys.
Yeah. I've had a friend put their phone down and look at me and say, I'm not going to play this with you again.
Yeah, MOBAs tend to be like that sometimes.
Very competitive, yeah.
Yep.
Here's another one that I've seen, and to be honest, I'm not sure if this one came from games. Actually, honestly, I'm not sure if any of these came from games first or if they came into games, but they're all things that I hear a lot when I'm playing games in China. This one is 满血复活. Now, hold on. I'm never sure if the 血 is 血 or 血.
I think that's a regional difference. Some people say 血, some people say 血. I say 血, but I've definitely heard people say 血.
Interesting. So because this is Mandarin Slang Guide, and no one's getting grades for this, just know it can be either of them. And it might be a regional thing. So, 满血复活, what does that mean?
It means full life revival. So did someone get a res and res at full life or what?
Ah.
Like maybe you just like feel rejuvenated after like a weekend or something. Like I could see that being used, I guess.
Yeah, that's the context I've heard it used in, outside of a game. So these four characters, 满 is full or complete, and 血 or 血 means blood, literally,
Yup.
which is often used to talk about HP in games.
Yep.
Like if I'm 满血, that means I'm full blood, or 我没血了 means
It means you're dead.
I'm out of blood. I have no HP. I got to run away. And then 复活 is to revive. So 满血复活 means to be revived completely with your full blood. Like you mentioned, like a weekend.
Yeah.
Someone's like, hey, how was your weekend? You can say, 哎呦,满血复活了. So, well, my weekend was great. I came back with full health.
Oh, another thing on shit, I just want to toss in here. 补血.
Ah.
So 补, like 弥补 means to heal, like 补血,给人家补血. Right? That's a heal, right? So if sometimes you heal someone, like, 补血is like, heal me.
Very good to know. So if you're playing a MOBA and someone's saying 补血,补血, and you think they're saying 不谢, like, you're welcome, and then you won't heal them, and they will say that you are very kēng. They will say that you are a 猪一样的队友.
Yep.
I think there's one more, right?
There's one really fun word that I think we could talk about. It's called miǎo. Like the second.
Ah, yeah.
Right? So when you're playing MOBA and you get like insta-killed, right? When you just get like deleted instantly, that's what's called like, the phrase for that is 被秒.
Ah.
Right? It like happens in a second. And this phrase is also used when you're like buying concert tickets or buying like limited edition stuff.
Huh.
So when a concert, like a really hot concert comes out, right? Concert gets 被秒了.
Ah.
Right? 门票被秒了. It's like when all the tickets get sold instantly.
门票被秒了. So 门票 is ticket, and 被 indicates the passive voice, and 秒了 is using second as in a measure of time as a verb. Like it was seconded. It was gone in a second. 门票被秒了.
Yep.
Nice. And if I'm playing a game and someone kills me instantly, like, 被秒了.
被秒了.
Would you say it like that?
Yeah. 被秒了. Like when you just get insta-kill, not 被秒了. It's just like, well, you're screwed.
It happens. Nothing you can do about it. You know, when I'm making an episode of MSG, the worst thing is that there's always so many words and I have to cut them down to a size that people can easily remember. And so there's more here, and you can Google it if you want to. But let's skip on down to the next part.
Sure.
Next, we'll talk about some of the roles that people play in this. I think in English, oh my goodness, I'm just now realizing I don't even know how to say all of these in English because I've never played a MOBA in English. I've only played MOBAs in Chinese. But I do know the first one. The first one is tank.
Yep.
So your character idea is you have a lot of 血 and you're really hard to kill. Maybe you don't do a lot of damage, but you're supposed to just sort of be a wall that can protect your teammates. How would you say that in Chinese?
Well, the one I like is 肉盾.
Yeah, 肉盾. Well, what does that mean,
right?
Literally?
Literally meat shield. It is just flesh or like meat. 肉 is like 猪肉,牛肉, 鸡肉 is like, you know, pork, and then 牛肉 is like beef, and then 鸡肉 is chicken. So it's the same row.
Yeah.
And then 盾 is shield. So like your job as a tank is like, I'm a meat shield.
Yeah.
Like, so you're talking like, you know, Dr. Mundo style people where you're just like, you're just a bag of shit.
A bag of shit. Yeah, and I love this 肉盾, but when you mentioned that to me, I hadn't even heard it before, because the one I always heard was 坦克, sort of as a transliteration of tank.
Yeah.
But I gotta say, 肉盾 is much better.
I just think it's funny because it's just like the picture of it.
Because we do say meat shields in English, but somehow 肉盾 feels more visual, feels more vivid to me. Next, let's go over to, this one I do know in English. It's the magical person. It's a caster or a mage or something like that. What do you call that role in these teams?
That one's usually called the 法师. right?
法师.
Fa is like, this one is used in like 法术, so like magic. So it takes the first word of that, and then 师 is like teacher or like master. So this is like magical master. Slap together, you get mage.
法师. Yeah, 法师 is always funny to me because I always get it mixed up with 法官, which is just a judge. And in that case, the 法 isn't 魔法 with magic, it's 法律, which is law.
Yep.
So I can never remember which one is a mage and which one is a judge. In my defense, they both have robes. Yes.
Yes.
Both traditionally old. Yes.
Yes.
Both have a wand. Yes, even though the judge's wand is more of a mallet, I think it still counts. But anyway, 法师 is a magical person, magic master, and 法官 is a judge. Very important. So that's 法师. Next we have, this one is 刺客. And I don't know how to say this in English, but what is a 刺客?
刺客 is assassin, and it's actually like a legitimate term. So if you watch a lot of like other TV, like C-drama shows and everything, particularly like the period dramas or like the palace dramas, sometimes you'll hear the guards go like, 有刺客, 有刺客. Like they're just screaming like, there's an assassin, there's an assassin. And the translation of 刺客, 刺 is to stab, and 客 is like a person. Like it's just like another character for a person, like, except it's like a guest, right? I guess like, so when you have guests over, you say 有客人, 家里有客人, like they have guests in my house. So like a stabby guest.
A stabby guest. I'm going to think about this forever. That's my new favorite word. I'm not sure if 客 always has the meaning of guest, because I'm thinking about the word that we talked about in our episode last time with Frankie Huang, 侠客, which is something that can be used for like a martial arts master. I guess sometimes it can mean guest and sometimes it just means a dude. Like a stabby guest or a stabby dude.
So I just pulled it on Plico. It gives me actually 3, 4 definitions. Noun, as a visitor, right? 2, as a traveler. Right? 3, traveling merchant, but that kind of lines up with traveler. 4, customer. Or 5, a person engaged in a particular pursuit. This is where it actually comes up. 刺客, 政客. Like a politician is called a 政客. Really, I've never even heard of that before.
政客.
Like 政治客. Like 政治, like politics, but 政客 is what they call it. I was like, huh.
Yeah. And that's got to be another regional difference because I knew the word 政客, but I guess they don't say that in Taiwan. Do you know what they would call a politician in Taiwan?
Normally, I just go with their like title, like 立法院, like 立法委员, like legislator or something like that. Like general politician, 政治人员. I don't know. I just like political like person.
Yeah. So my unexpected takeaway is there are a lot of dangerous similarities between Mobas and government. You got 法师 and 法官. You got your judges and your wizards. You got your 刺客 and your 政客. Your assassins and your politicians.
Yep.
All right, so that's 刺客. And we have a couple more, but I think for time's sake, we should sort of jump on down.
Sure.
One of them is sort of the support character, which would be the
辅助.
Yeah, the 辅助, which is there's nothing fun about that. It literally just means support.
Support, yeah.
That's what I usually play.
Hey man, it's one of like the lesser pressure ones. I play that a lot too.
Look at the 猪一样的队友 over here playing some 辅助 to stay out of the spotlight.
Yeah.
And one of the other important roles is the 打野, which is kind of interesting. Literally means hit wild. But
yeah.
How would I understand the 打野?
So I'm trying to think where this might come from, right? And the only phrase that I'm coming up with in my head is 去打野味, means to go hunting. Right? I read this a lot in books, is like when someone says like, oh, 去哪里? 去打野味. Right? That means that they're going to go kill something in the wild. Right? So I guess like that might be like going hunting.
Yeah, that makes sense because that's what that character does. They're supposed to go kill the extra monsters in the jungle to get more points for more fun.
Yeah.
But I didn't know that it was part of a longer phrase. 打野味. I've never heard that before.
That's like an older phrase. You definitely see that a lot in wuxia.
I guess I am not a man of culture. I gotta up my game. All right, so those are some of the roles that you might hear people talk about. And last, let's jump into some of these League of Legends character names. And I'm just going to let you take it away for this because I'm very unfamiliar with League of Legends.
So I think like the couples that I saw that were really, really funny. One was Leona. Leona is just like 女T. Like when I looked up the names, it was like 女T. I was like, so they don't call her Leona, they just call her like woman tank. Like that is like her job and that is like her role, and she's just like 女T or like teenagers. It's like, okay, I guess that's a quick way to say it other than like using her full name, which is probably like 3 characters, Leona or something. They would probably just be like 女T.
And when you're saying 女T, you're saying 女 is woman or female, and T that's the English letter T, right?
Yeah, or 女坦. Like they'll probably do that as well.
Yeah. So right. Tan or the letter T to stand in for tank or 坦克.
Tank. Yeah.
Yeah.
Another one that is interesting is Soraka is called 奶妈. Which is, how do you say, milk mother, aka, like
good Lord.
Nanny. And this is also used in like a lot of MMOs. Naima, like the healer role is always called Naima. And if you play some other like mobile games, they'll be like, if there's like healer role, they'll also call it like whatever Nai, right? Remember I mentioned 补血, there's also 给奶, which is heal. Like give them milk is also heal. Which is something that I learned. I was like, okay, all right.
So like you mentioned before, 补血 is to supplement the blood or to return some blood. And also 给奶, literally give milk, means the same thing.
Yep.
Wow.
So in other shows, they'll be like 奶他.
Oh, so you're using milk like a verb?
Yeah. Like you could say like 奶我 or like 奶他. It's like heal me or heal them.
Wow.
You know, in that phrase that's also used in game terms.
Huh. But you can't say like 血我 or 血他.
I haven't heard that one, but I've definitely seen 奶他 or 奶我 in like games before.
That's fascinating.
Yeah.
So far, these 2 characters that we have, they're both women, and their entire personality is sort of rebuilt around their femininity.
Yeah. I just gotta talk about my favorite one because I've been dying to talk about this one.
Yeah.
Is if you play League of Legends, there's a character called Yasuo. Yasuo on your team is always bad and is awful and is 猪一样的队友. Yasuo on the enemy team is always going to pentakill you. All right. So given this, there's now 2 nicknames for him that appeared when I looked it up. One is a Taiwanese slang called 妖羞 or 妖兽. In other words, this is like a swear, which is like, oh, my life like has shortened. Like literally, like the translation is 妖兽 is to shorten my life. Can I swear? Because it basically just means f me, right? Like or oh shit. Like when you say it, the first time I came across this term was my aunt was looking at the news and the stock markets crashed and she let this slip, and I was like, huh? And then I went to ask my mom, like, Ma, 妖羞 什么意思? Like what does 妖羞 mean? And she's like, where'd you hear that? And I told her, and I was like, no, it was my aunt said it. And she was like, your aunt's teaching you bad words. Don't use that again. Right? So like Yaoshu is Yasuo. So you can hear like the name similarity there.
Yeah.
So if you have a really bad Yasuo, it's just like Yaoshu. It's like, great. All right, we're going to die. And the other one is Yesu, which is like Jesus. Right? So if you get a good Yasuo and he's just going to pentakill everyone, like he's coming to save you. Like this dude's going to carry.
Wow. All right, so those are our 3 topics. We have some words that are commonly used in games as well as in real life. We have some of the roles for a MOBA, and we have some of the character names. I'm going to quiz you on these to see if you remembered them all. Do you think you're up to it?
I'll try.
All right, let's see. Give me 2 different ways to talk about giving someone some HP back.
Oh, we had 补血. And my favorite one is 给奶.
Yeah.
Give me milk.
Give me milk. Okay. If you feel like your teammates are completely worthless, even more worthless, shall I say, than livestock, what could you call them?
猪一样的队友.
Nice. Excellent. If there is someone who is big and burly and can just sort of take all of the damage and protect other people behind them, what would you call this person?
I would call them my 肉盾.
My meat shield.
My personal 肉盾. Save me.
Yes. If something is either overly expensive or if something is painful and will harm you and you really want to avoid, what can you call that thing?
很坑啊.
很坑啊. It's very whole, very pit.
Yep.
If you have a great weekend and you feel very rested and ready to take on the world, you feel like you...
满血复活.
Yeah, revived with full
revived,
HP.
full health.
Nice. Yeah, I think if I omit the profanity, I think those are all of the important words that we can review. So thank you again for talking to me about all these. It's been really fun for me to sort of walk down memory lane in terms of gaming terminology. And once again, if people are as enchanted by this as I am, where can they find you online?
You can find me on Twitter at OrangePeelPanda, one word. On Saturdays, I'll stream some games in Chinese. If you're interested in hopping by, Twitch is also OrangePeelPanda.
Nice. Well, thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
That's all the MSG we have for you today. If you want more, or if you want some flashcards, follow us on Twitter at MSG Mandarin, or on Facebook and WeChat as MSG Podcast, all one word. Thanks again to Johnny for being on the show, and again, if you want to catch his tweets or streams, jump on Twitch or Twitter and look for Orange Peel Panda. A very special thank you this week goes out to Stabby Guests. Stabby Guests. You may not be a correct translation of 此刻, but you're my favorite translation of 此刻. And last but not least, thank you to you, the listener, for listening. I love it when you listen to this podcast. New episode in 2 weeks, but for now, 再见,再会,再聊. Bye bye.
I think we covered everything. That was good.
That was quite good. I have some genuine podcasting laughing happening there.